Hey everyone, welcome back to Whiskey Therapy. I'm Jason. You can obviously see I'm in the kitchen instead of the whiskey room. So that means it's barbecue and whiskey pairing time. Today we're going to create a mouth-watering smoked pulled pork that will take your barbecue game to the next level. Whether you're hosting a party or just craving something delicious, this recipe is sure to impress. In addition, as we do here on Whiskey Therapy, we'll be pairing that delicious pulled pork with some equally delicious whiskey. So without further ado, let's get into it. First things first. Here's what you'll need to get the pulled pork started. You're gonna need a pork shoulder, or otherwise known as a pork butt, a generous amount of barbecue rub, can be homemade or store-bought. I'm using butt rub today. Finally, you're gonna need some yellow mustard for a binder. So now we need to prepare our pork shoulder. I'm going to trim away any of the excess fat and hangings off the pork butt. I did start trimming this ahead of time, so y'all didn't have to sit here and watch me do this the whole time. But there's still a little bit of trimmings here to get off. We're pretty good there. Check over here. And try and get a little of this extra fat off here right by our money muscle. And here. All right, we'll flip this over. Still got quite a bit on here for the fat cap. Now, you can leave this fat on and just remove it after the cook, and some of it will render down as well. I choose to trim it now. That way, more of the seasoning will be in contact with the meat and add flavor to the parts you actually want to eat. I'm sure we've all had a pork sandwich somewhere where you bit into it and got a bunch of fat in your mouth. It's not a pleasant bite. So we'll keep trimming this until we get most of it removed. So here I'm just kind of holding my boning knife flat and just trying to skim off some of this fat cap here. All right, we're starting to look pretty good here. Let's see if we can work this area a little bit more. There we go. All right, it's looking pretty good. You don't necessarily have to get it all off, but we're just trying to reduce some of the extra fat and bad parts in there. So next up is the yellow mustard. Now this is gonna get a bit messy, and that's okay. We're gonna basically rub this all in. Now, even if you're not a fan of mustard, this is such a long cook that by the time it's done, you won't be able to taste any of this mustard. We're actually just using this as a binder to make the seasoning stick better. So we're gonna make sure to get this all rubbed in, flip this over. We want to make sure we get the whole shoulder covered with the mustard. Piece of bone there. All right. Finally, for this phase, we'll add the seasoning. I'm just using some butt rub here. I think I got this from the local Sam's Club. It's pretty inexpensive, but it is great on pulled pork. So you can see we're gonna apply this pretty liberally here. This is a big cut of meat, so you really don't have to be afraid about getting too much on. It's gonna take a lot of seasoning to add that extra flavor. So don't be afraid to get a fair amount on here. All right, now that we have this fully seasoned, we're gonna let this rest and sweat out for at least 15 minutes for the seasoning to really stick. You could also prep this the night before, wrap it up as well. I already have the smoker fired up, so we're gonna let this rest before we put it on. While that's resting, let's talk about our whiskey. So whenever I do a barbecue video, I always like to have a whiskey while we're prepping, and then a different whiskey with our food. You could call it a double pairing of sorts. So what we have here today is a Broken Barrel Honey Smoked Reserva. And I'm gonna hold this up a little bit closer here. Hopefully you can see that. This one is fairly unique. It's an age-stated 6-year Kentucky distilled American whiskey bottled at 110 proof. It's finished for 5 months with honey and Texas sodal staves. Now, sodal is a bright green succulent that grows in the West Texas desert. So it's not really tequila, it's not mezcal, maybe a long distant cousin. It's really kind of in a category all of its own, and it has a very earthy characteristic. So let's see what the nose is like. Yeah, I'm definitely getting the earthiness. And I also get like a charcoal woody scent on the nose as well. Let's go in for some. Cheers, y'all. So I'm definitely getting a vanilla and spice. You can definitely pick up on the honey as well. It's more of a subtle sweetness than in your face. I'm also getting the smokiness, and though it's subtle too, it's definitely there. The cool thing is I'm getting it through the front, the mid, and the back palate. But it's lighter and it's not overpowering, it's nice. So on the finish, I'm getting a very nice, warm, spicy finish. And again, it's got that hint of smoke. I gotta say, I'm a fan of this one. I like this. Okay, so we'll let this shoulder finish sweating, and I'm gonna tell you about the smoke. So full transparency, it's actually nighttime here in Florida. It's about 10 p.m., and rather than try to go out and get video at night and walk you through everything, and the video not being great, I'm gonna do that walkthrough right now and kind of let you know what we're doing. And then in the morning, I'll bring you all out to the smoker and we'll check in on it. So I actually like to cook my pork overnight. It's such a long cook that I've learned to start it the night before so the family isn't upset about dinner being late the next day. So I already have the smoker heated up to 225. We're cooking on a Yoder YS640 with a competition blend pellet. The competition blend pellet has maple, hickory, and cherry in it. Now, if it gets done early, I usually use the towel and cooler method, which I can show you tomorrow. Remember, when you're doing your barbecue, you always cook to temp and not to time. Ultimately, we need this to hit between 200 and 205 for it to be tender and pull properly. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna get this on the smoker. I will see you all back here in the morning. Hey y'all, I'm back. Well, as you can see, it's morning time, so it's time to check this pork butt and see how we're doing. Ooh, man, that smells good. All right, let's take a look here. Quick temp probe. And right at just over 165, 166. So that's the perfect temp for us to wrap this up and let it finish its cook. So I'm gonna grab some foil and we're gonna get this wrapped. Okay, we'll set that back in there. Let me get my glove again. And I'll put our probe back in. All right, that's it, folks. Close this up. So I usually wrap these between 160 to 165. This one was just a smidge over, but that's okay. So we've got it wrapped. Now we're gonna let it just finish cooking in the foil until it hits our target temp of about 200 to 205. So with that, we'll let this finish cooking. We'll be back when it's done. So while our pork butt is cooking, I'm going to share with you one of my secret weapons for pulled pork. What is that, you may ask? I'm going to show you how to make a finishing sauce. For those that aren't familiar with finishing sauce, a finishing sauce is a sauce that adds flavor without being overpowering. So in other words, it complements the food. Now, it's not the same as a barbecue sauce, as you'll see when we make this up. As a matter of fact, you could add the finishing sauce first to the meat and then still put your barbecue sauce on later. You use a finishing sauce to elevate the food and make it extraordinary. I'm here to tell you, if you use this finishing sauce, your pulled pork will truly be next level. So, here's what you need to make the finishing sauce. You need 2 cups of cider vinegar, 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of Tony Chachere's Cajun seasoning, 2 teaspoons of coarse black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes. We'll start by adding the brown sugar to the pan first. That way, it won't splash us. Now I'm just gonna break that up in there a little bit. Next, we're gonna add our cider vinegar. I'm gonna put this on medium heat and we're gonna warm this up just enough to dissolve all the sugar. Now that our sugar is dissolved, we'll add the red pepper flakes, the Tony Chachere's, and the black pepper. We'll give this a stir and let this simmer for just a bit so the flavors will infuse. So while this is simmering, I used to make the pork without the finishing sauce. Once I discovered the sauce and tried it, the family won't eat it any other way now. I promise y'all, you really need to give this a try. The vinegar helps break down and tenderize the pork even further, and the sauce adds subtle flavors to the pork. The red pepper flakes don't make this spicy at all, so no worries there. It just adds more depth of flavor to the meat. The last advantage is that it helps keep the pork juicy and moist, even days after the cook. I'm gonna go ahead, let this cool down now, and then transfer it to a squeeze bottle. I'll see you back here for the pork. So as you can see, we're back here at the smoker. My remote probe is telling us that we're at temperature, so we're gonna open the lid. We're gonna use a small instant read, and we're gonna probe it in a few places just to make sure it's totally at temperature all throughout. All right, let's check this in a couple spots here. Yep, definitely at temp there. Good there. Good. Good. So one of the other ways you can tell that the pork is done, besides temperature, you saw when we inserted the probe, I didn't feel any resistance there at all. It was like butter. It just went in real easy, no resistance, and that's another indicator that this is definitely done. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull this off, we'll see you back inside. Okay, we're back in with our pork. As you saw outside, our pork is at the proper temperature and tenderness. For this last phase, all we really need is a foil pan, some gloves, our finishing sauce that we made earlier. That's about it. I'm going to unwrap this right in the pan, and we can see how we did. Got a number of layers of foil here. I'll tell you what, y'all, this smells amazing. So let's see, I'm actually going to just flip this right over. There we go. All right, set this over here. So first things first, let's get the bone out. This is the real telltale. And there you go. That pulled out nice and clean, just like it should. That's how we know we got it to the proper tenderness. All right, I might have to switch gloves here too. This pork is still really hot. Let me move this aside for a second. Let's pull off just a little chunk here so you can see. So hopefully you can see that. You can see how juicy it is. It's got great color, beautiful smoke ring. All right, set this back over here, and you can see how easy that pulls. You don't need claws, you don't need any gadgets. I mean, this will literally shred with just your fingers. As I'm getting this shredded up, I'm sure you noticed I have our second whiskey pairing out as well. So I went with one that I believe will be fairly accessible by most everyone. To pair up with the pork, I went with an Elijah Craig toasted barrel. Now, this is their small batch bourbon that's finished in toasted new oak barrels. It's bottled at 94 proof. All right, I think we're just about done here. If you remember earlier too, you know, we spent a little extra time trimming off all the fat, and that is, this is the payoff, because now you don't have a bunch of fat to try and pick out or get off the pork. It's mostly just good meat. What little fat was on there, more or less rendered down. All right, that's looking good. So now that we have the pork pulled, I'm gonna just take one glove off here. We're gonna add the finishing sauce that we made earlier. Now, of course, you can add more or less of this, just depending on what you want, but honestly, you don't need to be bashful here. So I'm gonna get a fair amount of this in there. Yeah, maybe just a little bit more. There we go. All right, put this over here. And let me mix this in just a little bit more. All right. Gloves off. All right. Actually, I'm gonna try this piece here. It's got good color on it. It's a bark. Let me try a little bit of with our finishing sauce. I'll tell you what, y'all, that is just dang good. Let me get a little bit more of that. All right. Let's check out the nose on our whiskey. And actually, here, there we go. So I'm getting caramel, vanilla, some baking spices on the nose. There's just a hint of oak, but it's pretty light. All right, let's go in for some. Cheers, y'all. So on the palate, I'm getting like a pepper spice, more caramel, actually some chocolate notes in there too. And I'm definitely picking up on the oak as well. The finish is a bit shorter than I would like. I get that spiciness first, and then it kind of moves over to a more sweet finish, but it's really quick and short. So let's try some more pork. We'll see how the two pair up. Big mash. Well, they definitely work together. Although it's hard to go wrong with barbecue and whiskey of any kind. So that said, that's it, folks. Hopefully you picked up some tips and tricks along the way. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider doing a like and subscribe. It really helps out as I'm trying to build the channel. I'll keep bringing you more of these types of videos. If there's something you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.